Good morning, good morning, good morning. The sound this morning is probably going to be weird, straight up. So once somebody hops in here with us, I will be interested if you can tell me how this, can you even hear me? That is question number one. It might not sound quite as clear as usual. So if you're there and you can hear this, please pop something in the chat to just say, yes, we can hear you. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so the sound is weird. The camera's working, so that's a bonus. If anybody out there, yes, I'm sure it echoes a little bit. I am having problems with my USB-C connected devices, my USB connected devices, dropping connection through my USB-C adapter. So right now everything's plugged into a bunch of different things just to hobble this together for today. So I'm sorry about the audio. This is a good study on why audio is important, and a shout out for our music production class, which is also great for any students who are interested in podcasting or video production or any of that stuff where sound is really important. Sign up for music production, Magnet Music Production on the sheets. Now, that transitions us into our first very, very important point. But first, good morning. Happy Wednesday. Today is March 24th. It is a little dreary outside. Maybe the clouds will burn off later. But today is the 24th. And what that means is that students need to have their registration submitted in the computer by Friday. I don't know if y'all heard that. My computer just dropped my keyboard and my mouse there for a minute. Your students need to have their registration in by Friday, the 26th. Mr. Ship's going to swing back by here in a minute. We're going to get an update. Hey, Mr. Ship. Sorry. What's up? Oh, perfect. I'll pull it up. Thank you. Registration needs to be in the computer by Friday of this week for next year. There will be time to make some adjustments later. There's an appeal process. Once we get schedules out to people in the spring, you'll be able to see in there, and we'll ask you to verify those again. So just make sure you get the registration in the computer. Again, if you know of a musician who really wants to do, like, play guitar, play drums, make tracks on a computer, like, we have a class for that. It's Magnet Music Production. Please sign up for it. We're working on a grant. We hope to hear soon. We don't have anything, we're always applying for stuff around here. Got some cool grant applications going out in the English department, actually, too. So that being said, registration, please put your registration in by Friday. That's really a huge registration. Now I'm just trying to procrastinate so we don't have to get to the next step, which is talking about the return, the Plan A business. I did not watch the board meeting on Monday. I read everything via Twitter and via the formal communication from the district. So we do have some questions from the Google form that we leave on the website. Again, a reminder, if you're just joining us for the first time, on the front page of the website, off to the right of the pictures, there's a YouTube live questions form that stays there all the time. So you can submit questions even if you can't be here with us live. You can watch the video later and get your answer. If you have questions about the Plan A return, as well as the ability to move into or out of the virtual academy, now's a great time to ask them. Go ahead and drop those in the chat. But really, registration. It will serve everyone in this building and your students better by extension if we get those registrations in ASAP. We've got some testing going on today. Again, a reminder for the drama boosters, they're doing the Take a Seat sale where you can honor your student by actually putting their name on a plate on a seat in the auditorium, which is totally cool. My mom actually has her name. She went to Cary High School back in the day, and they sold their old auditorium seats. And so I know my mom has 2 of those on her back porch because I helped install those. Today is the interest meeting for student government. That's at 2:30. Pre-ACT, you need to sign up by Friday. The form is in the weekly message. Your student will need to be logged into their Wake ID to fill that form out. All righty. So I got a couple questions in the chat already. So here we go. Will any Plan A classes include virtual students? Yes, probably. We already have a lot of Plan Alphabet classes that include virtual students, right? So like all of our arts teachers didn't want to risk losing kids and that connection to the program, you know, and in the arts classes, a lot of kids invest in those for 4 years. And so they all opted to deal with the struggles of always having somebody here and always having somebody away. So we certainly have plenty of situations where we already have teachers with Plan Alphabet and virtual. And when we go back to Plan A, they'll still have the virtual academy students to work with. That's not the case everywhere. You know, there are lots of core classes that are just on the rotations, and Plan A should mean that those kids will be back in the building. I think that answers your question. Let's see, to confirm, if a student joins or stays in Plan A, there will not be a remote option. Okay, so we don't know, and you guys know me, like this is flashbacks to July of last year. I'm going to keep talking, but I'm going to turn this light on. It's better for the camera. So you'll remember in July of last year, there was a whole lot of stuff that's like, we don't know, but think of it this way. This is new enough that we still don't know, but we also are trying to sort out how to think about it. So if a student stays or joins Plan A, students in Plan A, what I can tell you is that those students get to be in the building every day. What we do not know and what we do not have guidance on is what that means for attendance. And so that's where that, is there a remote option? Do students attend remotely and still get counted present? We don't know the answer to that. We haven't received any formal communication or guidance from the district on that just yet. But I expect that to be forthcoming, you know, and you'll remember from the board meeting, all of this was predicated on the fact that this is an incredibly tight timeline that was set in the legislation that got us here. So we don't know if they're in Plan A, if they'll be required to be here or not. We don't know the answer to that question. Okay, and so the next question is the same. Does Plan A allow for any remote learning options? Unsure. Does it require you to be present every? Yeah, so again, that we don't know. We don't totally know what that means yet. Yeah, we anticipate the numbers changing. You know, we've got some people that we have requests in for already. Approximately a third of the students currently in Virtual Academy. I think it's more than a third, but just barely. It's probably somewhere around 40% of the student body is in Virtual Academy. There's been a lot of talk about how schedule or teacher may change if you switch to Plan A. If your child is going back on April 8th, will that also be likely? Okay, so that has to do with where your student currently is. If your student is currently enrolled in Plan Alphabet, we're back to our early Plan Alphabet language. That means that you've already been rotating through the building, or you just know that you are not in Virtual Academy. If you are in Plan Alphabet, or if you are in Virtual Academy, and you opt to change where you're enrolled, that will likely, there's a high likelihood that that impacts your schedule in very dramatic ways. If you stay, if you're already in Plan Alphabet and you stay in Plan Alphabet and we move from Plan B to Plan A, we shouldn't see those changes for your schedule. There might be a few here and there, you know, and that is really Ms. Midget and Coach Bunting. Once all these requests go in, they're the ones that are tasked with having to sort all that out for us. But what we can tell you is the way to keep, if you like your schedule, if you want to keep the schedule that you have, don't change from Plan Alphabet to Virtual Academy or vice versa. Stay where you are if you like the classes you currently have. So if you're in Plan Alphabet, Plan B right now, and you just transition to Plan A, your classes should, for the most, I mean, like very small likelihood anything changes. Does the change in social distance guideline from 6 feet to 3 feet allow more students in each classroom? So that's an interesting take, right? The way, feasibly, yes. And again, it's all a recommendation. To the best of my understanding, even that 3 feet is just guidance. But you might remember from, was it all the way back in the fall? Dr. Martin mentioned a thing that when we plan school buildings, we plan that around 3 square feet per student. So if we know we're building for classes of 30, that's 900 square feet for a room. Did I do that math right? That can't be right. 270 square feet? I can't do math. My understanding is that we plan for 3 feet space per student when we build a school building. So feasibly, this 6 feet to 3 feet means that our classrooms can operate at their regular capacity. But what we also know is that many of our classrooms are already sort of over that planned capacity. If your child stays in their current plan, will their teachers stay the same? To the best of our knowledge right now, yes. We certainly aren't going to try and make changes willy-nilly. If my child was asked to quarantine, I was curious about how quarantine learning would work. We are as well. And just to describe a little bit more, I could have said this earlier, I'm sorry. So the state, like the legislature, said, here is legislation about getting students back into buildings. So DPI heard that and school districts heard that. School districts can read the law. You know, we have lawyers that support all the decision making of Ms. Moore and her team of chiefs. They can read that and say, okay, we know X, Y, and Z are things that we have to meet as a district, and we're not going to get guidance from DPI on that. Some of this remote learning, quarantine, attendance business we have to get that from DPI. So if legislation went out, DPI has to work through it. DPI has to send that to districts, then they have to send that to us. So that's why we don't have a really solid answer on quarantine learning or if there's going to be a remote option at all once we move to Plan A. We just don't have the answer to that. Will the IB classes have virtual students with Plan A kids? Likely. Currently do with every kid in person with a screen on their desk. So I know a lot of us are screened out. Let me answer the question first. Will the IB classes have virtual students with Plan A kids? Some of them, yes, will have both their Plan Alphabet students and the Virtual Academy students who stay in Virtual Academy. Meaning, will classes function the way they currently do with every kid in person with a screen on their desk? So this is sort of hard to answer. What I'll say is this. This rotations we've been on have been incredibly, incredibly difficult because teachers have to be responsible for kids in a variety of settings. So they have to make resources available digitally for the kids at home. And it doesn't make sense to replicate those for students who are in person when they can just have access to those materials in an LMS. Now, the difference is once we have a majority or more students in the building, I would anticipate that what you will have is the kids in the room won't be interacting in the chat in Google Meet as much. But I want to caution everybody from the idea that being on a computer in class is bad. There are a lot of really powerful things that we have learned and gotten good at for collaboration purposes that will allow students, even when they're together, to do really incredible things. So, I think that Plan A certainly allows for more in person. If you've got 15, 16, 18 kids in a room, instead of 4, it's easier to say, hey, I want your group and your group to go do this thing, and then we're going to come back and talk about it. But even then, there are limitations because there's still a number of safety protocols we have to manage, right? So we can't just pass things around. We still have surface cleaning to contend with. We still have lots of expectations around lunch. There are a number of things that still don't allow us to just do analog things that we used to do. So even when we're back in the building, we're going to have to use digital tools to get over the hump of, well, we can't be close. We can't share we can't share this tool. Like, we still probably can't have kids get together and huddle around a lab experiment and share the equipment and things like that. So there certainly will still be lots of learning that happens on a computer, but the demand of having to be in the screen all the time will certainly be lessened. Is lunch still in class? For students on campus, yes, lunch will be on class. Let me pull up email because I have a feeling Mr. Ship's updates may touch on this. Okay, so yes, here we go. Our understanding from the district is that we will begin off-campus lunch for juniors and seniors who apply and get their off-campus lunch permit. They'll be able to leave campus. For other students at this point, we anticipate lunch being in classrooms, but again, that's the thing that's hard for us to know. There certainly is a number of students who it becomes infeasible for. Right now, the admin team is delivering all the lunches, and it takes us about 25 minutes for all of our 6 teams to go and get lunches delivered. And just anecdotally, we're delivering between 2 and 4 lunches to maybe 60% of the rooms that we walk by. If that increases to 8 to 10 per classroom, all of a sudden the number of carts we need doubles, the number of people we need doubles. And so we have a lot that we have to sort out, but we also have safety protocols for the cafeteria. We don't know if we can use that space yet. So with regards to the question, is lunch still in class? Right now, yes. We don't know what a change will look like or if it is going to happen, but if it does, we will communicate it out. Now, the thing that I do want everybody to hear right now related to that is off-campus lunch permits are available only for juniors and seniors, and you do not need a parking permit to receive an off-campus lunch. You can feasibly walk to the Sheets, to Marco's Pizza. That's all I'm going to say. I don't recommend crossing Litchford. I recommend everybody contact the city of Raleigh and see if we can't push an update to that intersection, because there are no crosswalks or anything, and they're putting a whole bunch of more apartments over there, and I bet kids that live there are going to come to Millbrook, and they're going to have to cross that road. We don't even have sidewalks over there. Anyway, that's an aside. The city of Raleigh has been great when I've called them and inquired. So off-campus lunch permits are available for juniors and seniors. You do not need a parking permit. Off-campus lunch permits are $5. The application does need to be notarized, and we do not have a notary on campus. That notarization process tends to be the hang-up for folks. The good news is, with spring break coming up, hopefully that provides a little bit of flexibility to try and go get that document notarized. We will we'll build onto the website a whole section for last chance parking and off-campus lunch permits. I'll work on doing that today or tomorrow for sure, because we know that you guys are going to need to do that over spring break. The parking permit application is available. Again, it's only for juniors and seniors. We have about 40 spots available. And then finally, for health and safety protocols related to Plan A, students are going to be updated with the safety protocol changes by Friday. That'll be coming from Mr. Ship, and we'll send that in a variety of ways. Will lunch move back to third, or will it stay in second block? Also, what is happening with lunch? Okay, so off-campus lunch for juniors and seniors, we understand is going to be a go. We got to get the off-campus lunch passes going. We don't know about moving from second to third yet. I will say this, the admin team has been looking at what happens between 7:20 and 2:20. Hear me say this. Anything I say regarding bell schedule changes does not change 7:20 to 2:20. That is set by the district. We are looking at some tinkering in the middle of the day, but we're not ready to share that yet. Will seniors be able to leave for lunch? Yes. Seniors that apply for their off-campus lunch permit and get it notarized will get their off-campus lunch permit and be able to leave for lunch. Mr. Kane coming in clutch with a question that I can absolutely answer, which is yes, knowing that there's a release date is outstanding. I actually haven't seen that there's a release date. I've been a little behind. I just finished WandaVision on Tuesday. I have seen April 8 and 19 as Plan A start dates. Which one is correct? My understanding is that students are returning on April the 8th. We have added a work day on April the 7th. That got bumped from a work day in May. Let me see if the WCPSX calendar has already updated. You'd think by now I would just automatically have this calendar pulled up. I think we reference it every single time. Alrighty. Ooh, this calendar has not been updated yet. Again, my understanding is the Plan A return is on April the 8th. And that has to do with the way the legislation read. If that's not the case, we will communicate that, but we'll also blast out, hey, April 8th, April 8th, April 8th. Okay, if my virtual academy student wants to move to Plan A and all of her classes currently are hybrid, would her schedule stay the same? Not necessarily, and there's too many variables to consider there. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. April 19th is, oh, thank you, Ms. Wallace. So April 19th is for students switching from Virtual Academy to Plan A. So if you're in Virtual Academy and you would like to move to Plan A to return to campus, your start date would be April the 19th. Now, again, to recap this question, if you move from Virtual Academy to Plan A, even if your classes are currently hybrid, it does not necessarily guarantee that they're going to stay the same for a variety of reasons. We have some classes that the teacher actually might be teaching 42 kids because we know that 12 of them are remote. But if some of them switch back, we have to split that class up. That is like the most surface level, not in the weeds example I can give. But there is a substantial risk of your schedule getting changed in very real ways if you move from Virtual Academy to Plan Alphabet, or if you move from Plan Alphabet to Virtual Academy. Can teachers provide paper instruction rather than all homework classwork being in the computer? It would be nice if kids have a break from the computer. Yeah, I totally get it. And I think we will start to see some of that. But again, remember, just because we're in the building doesn't mean that all of the safety protocols around, like, here's some paper I can hand out and get back. We're just not quite there with all those details. Now, we'll know more from Mr. Ship on Friday per his email. But for now, I think it's, important to know Plan A does not mean that it's all of a sudden going to be lectures and note taking. It's not always going to be group work. Group work is going to be really, really hard. We know that collaborative learning is powerful. I would encourage everyone here to consider this, right? Like, we always in education have learned a lot, or we've always spoken about learning. And don't get me wrong, learning is a critical reason we do school. But I think, and many parents here who I've spoken with, I think many of you would agree that all of us adults have learned a hard lesson in the value of just social interaction. And so I think the real advantage, the real thing to lean into in Plan A is that more kids will be able to be around each other when they come to school. It's still not going to be the same. It's still not going to be like, I get to see all my friends in the cafeteria and walk around and say hi like the first day of school. There's still a number of safety protocols in place. But I think for a long time, we have really always put the social interaction piece well behind the learning piece. We have prioritized learning at all costs. And I think we've learned a hard lesson in learning should still be the priority, but the value of social interaction in that is drastically underestimated. I have many students who aren't particularly motivated intrinsically to do their work. But man, when they're here around their friends and they realize they're just as smart as that kid sitting next to them, they start doing the work. So how are teachers doing? I think so. I never like to try and speak on behalf of teachers. I'm smart enough now to realize that I've been out of the classroom long enough to, I can't assume how they're doing. Coping, a lot of the teachers I talk to have figured out how to be okay with managing things. Nobody here will tell you, oh yeah, this is awesome. Like nobody's in that place. So I know your kids aren't, teachers aren't either. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants to stick around with this because it is infinitely more work and infinitely harder to keep doing all this. And it is a monumental task for teachers to have to go into spring break with the mindset that when they come back, we are completely reinventing the setting again. This is going to be the fourth and a half setting since March of last year. So I think the biggest thing parents can do to help teachers as we move back to Plan A is, I know we're sort of all tired about that phrase about giving people grace. I am asking you and begging you as a community to recognize that teachers need time and space to sort this out. It's going to take a week or two to really get a feel for, okay, who's here? Who's at home? Again, we don't have an answer for if students can be remote. Our attendance here, I didn't ask me about this, so sorry to my team if I'm oversharing here. Our cohorts were balanced at 425 kids. We've seen about 150, maybe 200 kids on a heavy day here at school. That's hard to consider, right? Like, it's not like all of the Plan B families were jumping at the bit to get back in the building. Many of them still chose to stay remote when we came back in rotations. Now, I can get that. I'm a firm believer in consistency, and I believe that the week on, 2 weeks off is super hard, harder than being in Plan C. So I think the best thing parents can do is don't go in being like, oh, this is Plan A, I should see this now. There's a lot of things we want to see. There's a lot of things teachers will want to do. There's a lot of things teachers are going to try when we're back in Plan A, and they're not going to go great because there's a million variables that we can't account for because everything is still very new now that we're changing again. So the biggest thing you can do is recognize that you're a partner in your students' learning. And this goes back, right? Like everything I just said sounds like, forget the kids, give the teachers a break. But this is why that's not the case. We fundamentally believe that parents are a partner in their kids' education. And the best thing you can do as we get to this Plan A, if you start seeing changes, if you want to check in with a teacher, hey, can you help me understand how your course is organized so I can better support my kid at home, so I can coach my student at home on how to interact with your class. We know that your students are interacting with 4 different classes that might be across Canvas and Google Classroom. And within that, each one of them are probably designed a little bit differently. That's something that we are actively working on so that never happens again. We're going to have some really standard expectations around an LMS for next year. Granted, the LMS usage next year will not be nearly what it is this year. But the best thing you can do to support teachers is ask them questions, ask them how they're doing things so that you as a parent have the same language to ask to talk to your kid about that class. When the new math, right? When math changed in 2008, there was a really big disconnect between parents and teachers because the teachers were being told, here are the new standards, here's the new ways we have to think about this. The parents weren't given any of that language. And so a really great analogy I use is like, when I learned subtraction, I would borrow. Many of you here probably borrowed when you did subtraction. We don't teach that to kids anymore. We ungroup things, and this might not be a Wade County thing, to be fair. I don't do any of the elementary math, so I apologize. But now there's language around ungrouping because we want kids to have a very specific understanding of a unit digit, the tens digit, the hundreds digit, the thousands digit, and understanding that when they break that apart, they're not breaking apart a 9, they're breaking apart 900 so that you then have 894 so you can take that number. Like borrowing is just different. And if we had given parents that language, it wouldn't have been as contentious back in 2009, 2010, 2011, which might have been when your kids were in elementary school. So anyway, sorry, that might have been more than you bargained for. I've been at several schools in my career, and I can tell you there's no place I'd want my kid more than this school. So I just encourage everybody to step back and be like, we've got great teachers here. They want the best for our kid. How can I ask them a question that is helpful so that I'm a partner in my kid's learning? Okay. Oh, I'm glad. Thanks, Ms. Button. I'm glad that I wasn't totally off base there. And shout out, Ms. Crute, I see that. Shout out to the PTSA. Again, I've done this many times. One of the best PTSA organizations in the country. They have consistent communication with admin, consistent communication with teachers. They support so many programs here, from curricular programs to extracurricular programs to teacher classroom needs. That would be another way to support the teachers here, is to consider being involved in PTSA. It is a really rich, powerful organization that leverages change for every kid in the building. So I'm going to check the Google form real quick, because there are some that dropped in. I think we've probably answered a lot, but I'm just going to recap them. Oh, this is a good one that we should talk about. If you're watching this and for some weird reason you're no longer getting the weekly principals message, email me. To be fair, Chris Bunting will actually have to do the work, but Chris Bunting is getting a lot of emails right now about various things. So it'll be easier for me to catalog a list and then take 3 or 4 names at a time to fix it. What has happened is our student information systems has changed the database structure, and we have to have certain things in a certain spot for the database to pull over, and some of those things didn't transfer cleanly. We know the fix. If you're no longer getting the weekly principals email or message, please email me, cpatton2@wcpss.net. We can get you taken care of, no worries. With the plan to return A, what happens with asynchronous days? Unsure, because this calendar's not updated. I don't want to speak too much. Let's see here. Medical appointments, the pre-ACT is scheduled an asynchronous day in late April. To the best of my understanding, we're still going to have some asynchronous days. That is a guess on my part, so don't write that down. If a student wants to switch from Virtual Academy to Plan A or vice versa, will that change their teachers and or schedules? Yes, highly likely. Or does that depend on the number of kids who switch and whether you'd have to reallocate staff? Excellent second layer question. That's what we cannot know until we have all the requests put in. And we're going to read the deadlines and memo for that in a minute. It's the message that Ms. Midget sent yesterday. If a family chooses Plan A, but a student has to be absent, would they be able to attend school online if they cannot attend in person, or would it just be counted as an absence? That's the million-dollar question. I'm sorry we don't have a better answer for that. As soon as we do, we will tell you. Now that the DOE has decided to move to Plan A, will Plan A students still have the option to join virtually? Okay, so again, that's the question. I am reasonably sure that folks in Cary at central office are like spinning and trying to get that hammered out right now, but they really might be waiting for DPI. DPI is the source that they control how we track absences. Absence reporting is a superintendent required report, but it's actually legislated in duties of a teacher and stuff like that in other sections of the state statute. So because it's at that level, DPI has to give us guidance on the procedure, and we just don't have that yet. At least I don't know that we do. If Plan A students are home for illness or quarantine, okay, so it's the same question. We all have that question, and I really wish we had answers. So let's see. At the board meeting, they said they weren't going to change the schedule except for moving that one teacher workday from May, but who knows? Who knows? You remember those days back in July when we were like, who knows? We were hanging out together at 9 p.m. trying to talk about what this virtual academy thing meant. We had no idea. Here we are in March. We've done okay. Done okay. Can we request to move from Virtual Academy to Plan A only if the schedule doesn't change? No, I can answer that question for you very shortly. Here's and let me go ahead and pull up Miss Midget's note about that. How do I not already have an amateur hour here? So many emails. Okay, so here's why you can't opt to only switch if, and that goes back to what we talked about a minute ago, which is excuse me, we don't know if it's going to change until we know the numbers. And so if people said, well, don't change it if it's going to change, we wouldn't know the change unless they did. It's this weird catch-22, Schrodinger's cat. I don't know, I'm not that smart. I'm going to go with catch-22. It's a chicken and egg thing. We can't really have one without the other. So our expectation is this, and I'm going to almost read this verbatim, and then I'll share the link in the chat. As communicated by the district, students who wish to move in or out of Virtual Academy for the remainder of this school year do have that option. Please note, changing enrollment plans at this point will most likely require a change to student schedules. These changes can include a new order of classes, which means you might have biology 4th period instead of 2nd period. New teachers, you might have Mr. Scanlon instead of Dr. Siegerman, or possibly different classes. In some cases, there are classes in Virtual Academy that nobody is teaching in Plan A, and you would have to get a half credit for that and then pick up in the middle of a weird class. To change your student's enrollment plan for the remainder of this school year, you need to complete a form, which we'll put in the chat in a minute, by 5 p.m. on Thursday, April 1st. So that's next Thursday during spring break. If you don't complete the form, your student's enrollment plan will remain as it currently is for the remainder of the school year. Any changes to student enrollment plans will not be effective until Monday, April 19th. This is what I get for not doing the assigned reading before this. We wouldn't have had that whole runaround earlier. I apologize. Families who request changes will be notified of their next steps via school messenger during the week of April the 12th. If you have questions, please reach out to your student's counselor. Note that counselors will be out of the office after Friday of today until Tuesday, April the 6th. Monday, April 5th is a holiday for most everybody in the building. Not all of us, I'll be here. Miss King will be here. Most of us will be here in admin land, but we're not the fun people that you want to talk to. So that's that. Let me link 2 things. I'm going to link this communication in the chat right now. So this is the Plan A, that's too much. Oh, so again, if there's somebody out there with technical expertise, why my USB devices keep dropping is a mystery. Like my keyboard isn't typing right now. Plan A versus Virtual Academy memo is here. And then the form to request a schedule change is here. Let me actually get this copied real quick. Link, and we're gonna go here. Alrighty, let me make sure no more questions in the Google form. I'm gonna close the Google form now. Last call for questions. Last call for questions in the chat, and then we're gonna say goodbye because we've got some magnet stuff we're working on today. Will the hallways still be one way? Unsure. Expect that information from Mr. Ship on Friday. If so, will extra time be added between classes? Unsure. We are working on some tweaks to the middle of the day calendar. We'll communicate that as soon as we can. Other Wake high schools have taken 5 minutes out of class time so that 10 minutes is allotted for transfer to the next class. I understand that, but 10 minutes also invites a lot of opportunity for students to hang around and talk, which defeats the purpose of being safe distance-wise. So, Ms. Robinson, those are all really outstanding questions that I do not have any answers to, but we're active. Like we'll talk more about it today, and then we'll talk more about it tomorrow. And again, we're here on the 5th, so you should expect a lot of communication on the 6th and 7th before we come back on the 8th. And I'm gonna go ahead. Let's see, the 7th is a Wednesday. We come back on a Thursday, so we'll be here together on that Thursday. I am likely not going to do this next Wednesday. I love you all very much, but y'all, I need a break. Yes, I think the next update will be April 7th. We'll have a weekly message that goes out this Sunday. It'll probably be a repeat on Sunday. What does that become? The 4th? Yeah. But again, between now and Friday, if you have questions, email your counselor. You're welcome to email me, cpatton2@wcpss.net. We love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Tell your friends about it. Send them a link to the video. We did talk about an awful lot today. When we started doing this back in July, I think it was a good 2 weeks before we were really able to start crafting the ideas of like, okay, if you do this, this is what that means. If you do this, this is what that means. And unfortunately, we're not there yet. So hopefully on the 7th, we'll be able to be even more solid. But again, we'll be past a lot of deadlines by then. So I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of March. We should be rolling into spring. I think it's going to be rainy this weekend, but then it should be really pretty the rest of the week. For those of you who are out there getting your first round of vaccinations, welcome to the club and congratulations. Teachers, if you're watching and getting ready to get your second one, may the odds be ever in your favor. It's about 50-50 anecdotally from what I hear about people getting hit hard with symptoms. I will leave us with this. PTSA is likely the best, most effective, and easiest way for you as a parent to help the teachers here at Millbrook. Sophia Griffiths is here in the chat. She sends out communication all the time. PTSA has a Twitter account on our school website under parents. I'm pretty sure it's under parents. Yeah, if you hover over parents and you go down 3 spots, there's a link to the PTSA website that has a whole lot of information when they have meetings, how to join and stuff like that. So please do consider that. Be safe. And we'll see everybody soon. Bye, y'all.